From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Hi everybody, Rory Johnston here. Welcome to OpenLine on a Tuesday night. Filling in tonight for Ben Hall, and glad to be here to talk about a really unique experience that came my way just a couple of weeks ago. If you're watching News Channel 5, you know all about it. I had the opportunity to go to Washington and interview Vice President Joe Biden. We're going to show you that full interview in a little while. Only lasts about 6 or 7 minutes. We were given 5 minutes. We'll talk about that as well. And who else better to bring in to talk with us about politics in Washington and this particular visit and the reason behind the visit, why Vice President Biden invited me and a few other local anchors to Washington. Pat Nolan, our political analyst, is with us, and also Carrie Russell, political science professor at Vanderbilt. Good to see you both. Thanks for being here. And
thank you.
The plus is new digs.
It's nice.
Right? We've kind of done the studio swap.
Yeah.
737 plus is the phone number, everybody, if you'd like to call in. You know the routine. Before we get into this, I will say, prior in my life, I only met one president. It was Gerald Ford when he was campaigning in 1976 against Jimmy Carter. I was 10 years old, and he came to Houston for a rally, and I just happened to get in the right line as they were walking after the speech, and he was shaking hands, and he looked down at me and shook my hand, which was a total thrill. Talk a little bit about your experiences. You were saying earlier that you had the chance to interview a vice president.
I did. In 1984, when George Herbert Walker Bush was running for re-election with Ronald Reagan, he came to Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Right.
And I went up to cover that. I had been to the Republican convention that summer. Of course, I didn't meet any candidates when I was covering the convention. We went up and interviewed the vice president that day, and the hook for us to come to Bowling Green to cover this was that we'd get a one-on-one with the vice president.
Right.
So we did, and I got a picture out of it, which I did nothing with until he got elected president. And I said, okay, this is valuable. I need to put this up on my wall.
Right.
So it's on my wall in my office. That's as close to an actual in-office president that I got. I did have a chance to talk to Jimmy Carter when he first came here in 1976 for his first fundraiser when he was a candidate.
He was still governor of Georgia.
Yes, he was still running for president. He had just won the Iowa caucus when he came here.
Excellent. Carrie, what about you?
Well, that's a good segue into my brush with Joe Biden and now President Obama. Was I got to go to the Iowa caucuses in 2008 and chaperone a trip of 50 Vanderbilt undergrads who were working for all of the different candidates, and I got to shake Hillary Clinton's hand and Obama's hand, Ron Paul's hand, and
a bipartisan hand.
Yeah. But I also got to meet now Vice President Joe Biden at his campaign headquarters, and that was great.
Real quick, Carrie, what was your impression of him, meeting him in person?
Well, I at the time was struck by him as just what a natural networker, politician he is, and I thought to myself, you know, there are so many people in Iowa that actually support and love Joe Biden that it would be very wise if President Obama, you know, made the decision to pick him as a running mate. So
we have had opportunities before. About 4 or 5 years ago, you may remember my co-anchor Vicki Yates also got the call to go to Washington, and she sat down with President Obama to talk about a couple of things. And again, that was a short interview. She was among a handful of local news anchors who were called in. So let me give you the timeline here, folks, of how this happened. It was 2 weeks ago, Monday night, and I got this email. And at first, it was a little odd because I didn't recognize the email address, saying, would you like to come to Washington to interview Vice President Joe Biden? Please contact me. And then the person on the other end asked, what is your cell phone number? You know, it just seemed odd to me. I thought it was a prank or spam or something, but I looked closer at the email address, and it was I think the old executive office building, OEEB at vp.gov or whatever, something like that. And I started to think, well, maybe this is legit. So went back and forth.
They contacted you directly.
Contacted me directly.
That's interesting.
And it was someone in the vice president's press office. So we went back and forth, and they explained he'd like to sit down with you and a few other local news anchors. It would be Friday at the White House, 8 a.m. So quickly we had to scramble, you know, this isn't something that, you know, just let's pull out some petty cash and fly 2 people to Washington. So over the next few days, we scrambled a little bit and set up this change of schedule, and I brought Tommy Kraus, our executive producer of news, with me to Washington. Got it all worked out, and when we come back from the break here in a few minutes, we'll show you the actual interview. I will say, walking into the White House grounds, getting past security, the little hut there on the south lawn, and then they let you through, and suddenly you're just walking up the sidewalk at the White House. And Tommy and I were kind of looking. It's a very surreal moment.
Sure.
It's different from taking the public tour.
It's very different. Yeah, and you know, you've got the press pass on, and you're looking around and thinking, is this really happening right now? And you know, immediately I'm taking as many pictures, and it was raining that morning too. But we're going to talk about
your
that.
pictures on Facebook. You did a nice job.
Thank you. We are going to talk about that, and yes, there was a reason, folks, for them calling me there, and that is the Supreme Court nomination of Merrick Garland. A lot of people asked me via social media, did you have to ask about that? There was never any parameters for this interview. 5 minutes we were given in a room, sit down with the vice president. It was a pool situation where I believe Fox News Channel provided the cameras, 3 cameras, so it was all set up for us. But it was clear that that's what they wanted to talk about. And we're going to go into a little bit about that, and I want to know what you think about this nomination that's being held up right now for Merrick Garland. Are you surprised that the vice president would do this, would target Pat?
Oh, no, not at all.
And let me just put this out. It was News Channel 5 here in Nashville. It was a station in Louisville, Kentucky, a station in Pittsburgh, and then the 4th was a station in Joe Biden's home state of Delaware. I think it's the Salisbury, Maryland market, southern Delaware. The 4 of us were there that day.
I have to assume the White House had some reason to believe that perhaps airing an interview down here about that topic might help them get some leverage with Senator Corkers and Senator Alexander. I wouldn't think a lot, because particularly Senator Alexander has a very close relationship with Senator McConnell, who's the majority leader. They're very, very close personally. So I think it would be hard for Senator Alexander to go separate from that. I'm surprised to hear they had somebody come down from Kentucky, because that why they would think the majority leader is going to. He has locked himself so tightly on this, it's going to be hard for him to unwind himself even after the November election on this.
Well, that surprised me a little. You know, Tommy and I on the trip there were talking about what is their strategy here, what are they looking to gain from this, and obviously they want to push the nomination and try to pressure some senators into at least having a hearing. Sit down and talk with the man, meet him.
Just keep the nomination alive, maybe more than anything else. Keep the conversation out there, people aware of what's going on and whether they think that's fair or not to be what's going on.
And public opinion polls have definitely shown that over the course of the past month, the vast majority of Americans, left, right, center, think that the Senate is supposed to be doing their job right now, and disagree with the foot dragging.
And I can tell you, Roy, there's an awful lot of conservatives. I see a lot of very conservative email threads that go around, and there's a lot of them who are very concerned, as they put it, the Republicans are going to cave in on this. And they were particularly concerned a couple of weeks ago, just when senators start saying, well, okay, I'll meet with him. That was enough to send some of them over the moon on that. They were very unhappy about that. They thought that Republicans were caving in, and this was going to lead, after they met with them, this was going to lead to the committee meeting and then going to the floor. I mean, they were way down the road. They were about to jump off the ledge at that point. Obviously, that's not happened, and probably isn't going to happen, I don't think, anytime real soon. They might have a different idea after the election, particularly if Hillary Clinton's elected. They might say, well, you know, who knows what that's going to be. And let's just say the Democrats, for some reason, take over the Senate. The Republicans might decide it's better to go ahead and confirm what they have in hand with
and
Justice
not take their chances.
and take the chance of what might get sent to them or get sent to the Senate to confirm what the Democrats have control.
Merrick Garland is considered more moderate.
Middle of the road
nominee.
Well, they've now found some things in his record on gun rights and some other things that they're making a big deal out of. But I mean, when he was confirmed to his circuit court, his appeals court seat, he was confirmed something like 97-0. So nobody had a problem with him when he first went on the appeals court. So I think he's got a much more in the middle of the road thing than I think what a lot of people thought President Obama might nominate to that position.
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, I'll set it up once again for you, kind of a little bit of the background on the Merrick Garland nomination, and you'll get a chance to see the full, unedited 6 or 7 minute interview with Vice President Joe Biden, and then we'll discuss after that. We'll be right back.